Hi there, Mama. Good to see you. Thank you for coming by today. I'm so happy you are here. So today's topic is gestational diabetes. Maybe you recently took your blood glucose tolerance test, whether it was the 1 hour or the 3 hour, and it's been determined that you have gestational diabetes, or maybe you're at higher risk of developing gestational diabetes. Whatever the case is, today's topic is going to focus on different diet strategies, nutrition strategies to help you manage those blood sugar levels. In doing this, managing those blood sugars will help you have a healthy pregnancy, body, and baby. So we're gonna be talking about what types of carbohydrates you should be consuming and a few different diet strategies to help you do so. But howdy there, my name is Sarah and I am a registered dietitian with a master's degree in human nutrition. So let's get right to it. So there's a few key points that I wanted to talk about first before we get into the nitty-gritty stuff. Number one is that you should definitely talk to your healthcare provider about anything and everything as far as, nutrition, diet, all of that. I want you to talk to your healthcare provider first. Make sure that you are meeting your unique needs because you have obviously a unique body and a unique baby, so your needs, your nutrition needs are going to be unique as well. So talk to your doctor or even a dietitian who specializes in diabetes or gestational diabetes to help you figure out what your needs are. So although gestational diabetes does go away after you deliver your baby, it is still important to monitor for developing type 2 diabetes later on, because your chances of developing type 2 diabetes after having gestational diabetes is higher. So one little key tip here for you is to try to breastfeed, because breastfeeding, it has actually been shown to reduce the risk or the chance of developing type 2 diabetes later on. So if you can breastfeed, definitely do it. Another thing is that your doctor might have you monitor or check your blood sugars regularly throughout the day to check in on those sugars and make sure that you're not getting too high or even too low. So that's something, again, to talk to your doctor about is when and how often you should be checking your blood sugars. So lastly, you may require oral medications to help manage your blood sugars, or even insulin. So again, that's something that your doctor will go over and discuss with you. And generally, you require medications if lifestyle changes or like diet, for example, changing your diet around and adopting better nutrition habits. If those things don't work for you, you may require an oral medication or insulin. So let's just talk about why it's important, if you have gestational diabetes, to manage your blood sugar levels. So uncontrolled blood sugar levels can actually lead you to developing certain health issues in regards to your pregnancy and your baby. So the first thing is that with uncontrolled blood sugar levels, your baby could basically grow too big, and this could actually obviously cause discomfort throughout the pregnancy, but it can also increase your chances of having a cesarean section or C-section. Your baby might also be at risk of being born too early. I already mentioned this, but you are at higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes later on. You're at higher risk of having preeclampsia, which is basically high blood pressure. And you're also at risk of actually having low blood sugar levels. And that's usually associated with the insulin medication that you're on, if you're required to take insulin. So when it comes to thinking about carbohydrates and what the kind of carbohydrates we're consuming and that type of thing, there's basically two things to think about. One is the total amount of carbohydrates you're consuming throughout the day, and the second thing is the types of carbohydrates you're consuming. So we're gonna look at both of those. So let's talk about the total amount of carbohydrates that you're consuming throughout the day. So I wanted to mention to you is to make sure you knew is that the recommended dietary allowance, or the RDA, for carbohydrate intake for pregnant women is at least 175 grams per day. So I don't want you to get in your head like, oh, I'm only gonna consume 50 grams of carbohydrate per day to try to manage my blood sugars or whatever. No, you actually require at least 175 grams per day to help your baby grow and to have good pregnancy outcomes. So one thing, a little kind of tip or like a general guide basically, is to consume, to basically break down your calories into how many should come from or how much should come from carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And a general rule of thumb is to consume about 50% of your calories from carbohydrate sources, 25% of your calories from protein sources, and then another 25% of calories should come from fat sources. So again, that's a general rule of thumb, but again, I always say talk to your doctor or dietitian about this and your unique needs, because they can help you figure out how many carbohydrates you should be striving to consume per each day, how many grams of carbohydrates you need throughout the day. So let's now talk about the types of carbohydrates you should be consuming. And basically there are two different types of carbohydrates. One is the simple carbohydrates and the other is complex carbohydrates. So one thing to keep in mind is that all carbohydrates you consume, whether simple or complex, excluding fiber, will, through the process of digestion and absorption in our bodies, they will basically be broken down into sugars and be absorbed as sugars. So now let's investigate further into the differences between simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. So simple carbohydrates are also known as simple sugars or refined carbohydrates because they contain only one or two sugar molecules. Simple carbohydrates are digested usually pretty quick in our bodies, so that actually causes a spike in your blood sugar levels and then basically a immediate drop in your blood sugar levels, which we want to avoid that. So simple carbohydrates are basically a quick, fast energy source. Simple carbohydrates are also known to have been stripped from important nutrients as well as fiber. So here's some common examples of simple carbohydrates: table sugar, corn syrup, honey, jams and jellies, juice, soda, white pasta, milk, and refined products like white bread, cakes, cookies, and candy. So now let's understand more about complex carbohydrates. So complex carbohydrates usually contain longer chains of sugar molecules. They are more nutrient dense, higher in fiber, and they actually help keep us fuller for longer. So they're more filling. They're also digested slower, so this helps reduce that spike in your blood sugar level. So they're kind of more considered like a slower source of energy for our bodies. So some common examples of complex carbohydrates include whole grain pastas and breads, bran cereal, brown rice, quinoa, oatmeal, beans, sweet potatoes, broccoli, spinach, carrots, peas, corn, berries, and bananas. So if you get anything from this video, the main take home is that you should be consuming more complex carbohydrates and less simple carbohydrates, or start replacing more of those simple carbohydrates with complex versions. But with that to say, I don't want you to be super strict or anything like that. I still want you to be able to fit in simple carbohydrates into your diet. So you just have to strive to consume less simple carbohydrates, smaller portions, and maybe even try to consume, healthier versions of simple carbohydrates. So if you're like me, I like to consume a treat every day. You should be treating yourself daily, in my opinion. You're pregnant, for Pete's sake. But try to consume a smaller portion size of that treat. So don't deprive yourself. Also try to consume, if you have a big sweet tooth like myself, try to consume healthier sweets. So that would be like dried fruit, like dates, cherries or blueberries. There's those cocoa roasted almonds out there that are super good. They're filling, they're high in protein, and have other important nutrients. Dark chocolate is another good example of a healthier sweet. There's Clio bars. Those are the chocolate covered yogurt bars that you can find in the yogurt section at the supermarket. Those are so good. They satisfy sweet tooth. They're high in protein and they're filling as well. And lastly, you could opt for the sugar-free versions of the sweets that are out there, but limit your consumption of those. I don't want you to consume a ton of those artificial sweeteners. So I have a few diet strategies that will help you manage your blood sugar levels. But no matter what strategy you adopt, again, just pounding this home, is that you should be consuming more complex carbohydrates and less simple carbohydrates. So the first one is carbohydrate counting, and the second one is the plate method. So let's look at both of those. Let's look at carbohydrate counting. The basic version of carbohydrate counting is based on carbohydrate choices, where one carbohydrate choice equals 15 grams of carbohydrate. So the key to carbohydrate counting is that you're spreading out your carbohydrate intake throughout the meals that you're consuming throughout the day. So you're breaking down your carbohydrate choices into your meals, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So let's look at an example, okay? Let's say you're striving to do that 50, 25, 25 rule of thumb, like I mentioned earlier. You're striving to kind of break down your diet that way. And let's say you require 2,200 calories a day. Now again, talk to a healthcare professional about this, or a dietitian that will help you figure out what your exact needs are. So when we break down our calorie intake throughout the day into carbohydrates, protein, and fats, using the 50, 25, 25 rule of thumb, that means for carbohydrates, you're going to be consuming 1,100 calories a day from carbohydrates, and that comes out to 275 grams of carbohydrates per day. For protein, that's about 550 calories per day, and about 138 grams from protein. And for fat, that's about 550 calories, or 61 grams for fat for the day. And if you want to know how I figured that out, comment down below or ask down below. I'm happy to go over that with you. So thinking about all of that and that breakdown, how many carbohydrate choices do I have for my day? So doing the math, I'm going to take the 275 grams of carbohydrate and divide that by 15 grams, because I know 15 grams equals one carbohydrate choice. And that comes out to 18 carbohydrate choices per day. So breaking that down into our meals for the day, what does that look like? So for breakfast, that means I could have 4 carbohydrate choices. For a snack in between breakfast and lunch, that's 2 carbohydrate choices. For lunch, I can have 5 carbohydrate choices. And then for another snack in between lunch and dinner, another 2 carbohydrate choices. And lastly, for dinner, that's I can have 5 carbohydrate choices. So that just gives you a little breakdown of what it looks like for your meals when you want to break down your carbohydrate choices for the day into your meals and snacks. All right, so just wanted to take a quick minute here and look at these breakfast biscuits here. This is obviously a packaged food item, but when we're doing carbohydrate counting, we obviously want to make sure that we're reading food labels, or even if we have to look up the food item online, depending on where, if you're going to a restaurant or something, fast food joint, or if there's an item that does not have a food label, you definitely want to look it up online to see how many carbohydrates you're going to be getting from that food item. So in this case, let's take a peek at these breakfast biscuits here. So what we're going to do first is actually look at the serving size. So in this case, 4 biscuits is the serving size. And then what we're going to do is, because again, we want to make sure that we are, consuming the appropriate amount of carbohydrates depending on what if it's a meal or snack, or incorporating that item into a meal. Whatever the case is, we want to stay within, our daily carbohydrate range. So we have to keep track of the number of carbohydrates, or number of grams of carbohydrates we're consuming. So what we're going to do next is we're going to look down here at the total carbohydrates. In this case, it's 36 grams, right? But one thing is, if you remember me mentioning before, dietary fiber is not absorbed, it's not broken down into sugars. So it's something that just basically moves through your GI system and is good for your microbiome, so good for gut health, and obviously it's good for promoting good, solid bowel movements. No pun intended there. But anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the 3 grams of carbohydrate from what we're getting from the fiber. So 3 grams of fiber, we're going to subtract that from the total carbohydrate. So in this case, that's 36 grams of carbohydrate, you can see here. So 3 subtracting that from the 36, that comes to 33 grams of carbohydrate that we're going to be getting from this particular food item. So 33 grams is going to be broken down into sugar in our bodies. And again, so something we want to keep track of. Read these nutrition facts labels of any packaged food items you're getting to help you make sure that you're helping to manage those blood sugar levels and helping you keep track of the total number of grams of carbohydrate that you're consuming throughout the day. So now let's look at the plate method. This method is probably the easiest method to use because you're not having to think about the math or any numbers or anything like that. So using the plate, literally your plate as your guide, the plate method helps you portion out the appropriate amount of vegetables, protein, and carbohydrate for your meals. So this will help you ensure that you're consuming a well-balanced diet full of nutrient-dense foods. So let's look at a plate. What should your plate look like when you're using the plate method? A quarter of your plate should come from a carbohydrate source. And again, you want to try to consume or include complex carbohydrates into your meals. So half of your plate should come from non-starchy vegetables, and those include maybe broccoli, carrots, mushrooms, asparagus, salad greens, or peppers. A quarter of your plate should come from a lean protein source, and that would include something like chicken, fish, lean beef, eggs, cheese, or cottage cheese. And some vegetarian sources of protein include beans, lentils, quinoa, nuts or seeds, tofu or other soy products, or meat alternatives. So here's just a little visual aid of the different complex carbohydrates you could include in your diet. So we have pumpkin, banana, whole wheat pasta, quinoa, brown rice, broccoli, kidney beans, tomatoes, carrots, peas. All right, so I'm gonna sneak in a last little piece of advice for you guys here that's not nutrition or diet related. And maybe you already were told to do this, but exercise, okay? Exercise is so very important when it comes to managing your blood sugars. So when we exercise, our muscles require energy, right? So that energy source will come from carbohydrates or sugars. So when your muscles are using carbohydrates or sugars for fuel, it's actually in turn helping you manage your blood sugar levels. So there's an article I wanted to just share with you guys. It's called The Influence of Prenatal Exercise on Offspring Health, and it's a review article. But in this article, what the authors have found is that women who exercise throughout gestation show significantly decreased risk of preeclampsia, hypertension, gestational diabetes, weight gain, rate of spontaneous abortion, congenital abnormalities, and incidence of preterm labor. And offspring have normal growth and development. So those are many great benefits to exercising throughout your pregnancy. And what kind of exercises should you be doing? So first and foremost, you should be doing, you shouldn't be doing anything super vigorous or uncomfortable or anything like that. And definitely listen to your body when it comes to exercise. If you're not feeling good, your body's not feeling good, something's not right. So don't do that exercise. And of course, again, talk to your doctor always about anything that you're going to be doing, any exercise or new exercise you want to incorporate into your day. But a few ideas that come to mind include brisk walking, swimming, using a stationary bike, doing some yoga, light yoga, as well as various squatting exercises, and specifically squatting exercises because those will help you down there in your pelvic region, and that actually can actually help you when it comes time to delivering your baby. Alrighty, so thank you for stopping by today and watching the video. Do you have any other ideas or tips, suggestions to helping manage blood sugar levels, whether it's diet or exercise or whatever the case is? Share your thoughts and comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. And with that, good luck to you. Good luck with your pregnancy. I am praying for you for a very healthy pregnancy, baby and delivery, all of that. I pray that your experience is just supernatural and beautiful. I wish you the best of luck and everything. And if you have any questions, please, again, comment down below. I want to answer any questions or concerns or anything confusing that might be popping up in your head. I just want you to know I'm here for you. But with that, take care, and I hope to see you again very, very soon. All right, bye.